So, welcome back. I want to start by acknowledging something that I think we all feel. Life gets busy. Between therapy sessions, school meetings, appointments, and just keeping family life moving, it's easy to let our own needs slip to the bottom of the list. But the truth is, looking after ourselves isn't selfish. It's what keeps us showing up for the ones that we love. Today's conversation is about the real stuff, not perfect plans or picture perfect balance, but honest, practical ways to build a bit more space, calm, and joy in the middle of it all. I'm not talking about spa weekends or hour-long meditations, because who has time for that? We're talking about what is actually doable when life is full. So micro breaks, tiny pauses, 2-minute resets. I think we just heard a little bit about that in our last session. So the small changes that make a big difference. And with that, I am joined by 3 wonderful panelists. So first of all, I have Kylie, who is a mum of 2 neurodivergent children, who she introduced herself earlier. And Kylie has supported over 1,000 families through both Plumtree and Belongside Families, and is a wonderful Healthy Mothers, Healthy Families facilitator. We're very lucky to have her. We then have Frank, who is now a next facilitator, and if you were in our last session, you also heard he is a lifelong Scout leader with amazing experience there, and he brings a hands-on present approach to parenting and understands firsthand what it means to stay engaged while still taking care of yourself. And finally, we have Helen, who is a registered counsellor and teacher and has her own lived experience. She shares ideas about creating balance at home and letting go of comparison, and discusses how to recognise burnout before it takes hold. I just read the wrong part, but that's okay, because we're going to discuss all of those things if I don't fall off my chair. So let's dive in. This is our space to learn about how to look after ourselves and hopefully leave feeling a little bit more lighter. So my first question is to Kylie and Frank. So you can decide who wants to take it first. But let's start with some honesty. When you're in the thick of it, managing appointments, school, therapy, the paperwork, and just getting through the day, how realistic is self-care? What does caring look like for yourselves in day-to-day life?
Thanks, Kelly. I think it's a really good question, because self-care can feel like another thing on the to-do list. Putting ourselves on that list can feel like, well, I can't fit everything else in anyway, so I'll just wait. So in seeing it like that, it means we're never going to get around to ourselves, and we're going to see self-care as a big job, a lot of things to do. But in reality, we need to do self-care to be able to look after ourselves, to give to others, and if we don't feel our cup, we can't do that. So I've had to really think about self-care as being essential care, as being, a way of doing childcare. And I read something the other day that said, self-care keeps us kind. And I thought that's a really important reason to do it, because I want to be that soft landing place for my children. But I need to be it for me first. So I need to find a realistic way to bring self-care into the day-to-day. So I keep it small, those little steps, those tiny little steps, and I just think, what's one little thing I can do today? And usually if I start the day off thinking like that for myself, it's a really positive place to start, to get me thinking, what else can I do after that? So if I just say do 1 minute of self-care, if I'm enjoying it, I keep doing it. I've learnt that songs are about 3 minutes long. Play a song, sing, dance, move my body, get the kids involved. I've learnt that it's okay to take a longer time in the shower. You're allowed to. It's okay to sit in the car for those 5 more minutes to transition. Our kids get to transition, so do I. I've learnt that I can tell other people, hey, I'm just having a Kylie moment right now. This is my space. I need to breathe. And I've learnt to sort of enjoy the little glimmers in the day. So You know, if the sun's out, I'll get my feet on the grass. Or I take joy in going and getting to the letterbox now. You know, it means I have to walk. So it's just finding the small little moments in the day for me and realising that self-care doesn't have to be a big thing.
Thank you. I agree very much. I do think you have to put it in your calendar or in your schedule. And also echoing what you said, sort of when you're on a plane, you watch that sort of instruction video. So they always say, put on your arm mask first before you do it to anyone else. And it's really the same thing about self-care. Doesn't mean you're going to doing self-care for yourself all the time, because then there's no purpose to it, but it is important to get it in, because I feel it so much. If I haven't looked after myself for a while, then I start to eat more poorly, because then the sugar gives me more energy short term, but then I get a bigger down afterwards. So for me, self-care comes into eating well, just making sure I have a well-made homemade porridge every morning, because that gives me sustenance to last for longer the day and not having those dips. And also exercise is very important for me, so I try it at least a couple of times a week, having scheduled a bike ride, and I deal with some friends, because then I have both the physical and the mental exercise to it. And again, doesn't mean I'm going to go for 3-hour bike rides every day, because that's not going to work. Then I can't care for my kids, but I still need it, and I do think it's really important to put it in. But in those tough moments when it's you just go, and you don't have the moment, then again, as Kylie said, just take that minute or two in the car and breathe. And I used to be a very good sleeper, but the last 6 months to a year, I haven't slept that well. But one thing that really helped me is putting on a Yoga Nidra podcast, basically, when I go to bed, and it really helps me to, I never listen them throughout because I'm falling asleep straight away, but if I don't do that, I could lay awake for 3 hours. So before I actually fall asleep these days. So it's about finding those small little tools and techniques on what you can do that sort of enhances where you want to go. You want to go to sleep. I can't. It takes too long, but how can I do it quicker? And because I have to do the sleep anyway.
Can I add?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. So everyone says self-care. Everyone says pour into your own cup first so you can pour into your children. But having children with additional needs and having additional needs myself, late identified, I want to say that is so hard and overwhelming to begin with. A lot of us are adults reparenting ourselves that weren't role modeled or parented emotional regulation skills or self-awareness at all when we were younger. So we're having to relearn that now from all our child's therapists most of the time. And if you're anything like me, throughout that journey, you know, when I was teaching my son window of tolerance, in a couple of days I thought, holy moly, this is working for me. And it just makes a huge difference. Some of us really need that psychoeducation in all this stuff as an adult to then be able to regulate ourselves more, understand and meet and accept our needs and advocate for them, get the help without feeling less than, because we're not, and then in order to have enough capacity for our children. So yeah, it can be hard, but why make it harder for ourselves? Give yourself that time and that space to access resources and the support you need. You know, for myself, there was, those years of therapy before reaching out to, neurodivergent therapists that really got me. And it's those kinds of connections where a couple of things you learn really spark your journey in a different trajectory and can help you in huge ways. So that's why I do what I do now in the counselling business to support families, raising kids with additional needs, because we've been there. But there's something else, there's an acronym called SEED. So some of the main basic areas of self-care: social, emotional needs met, exercise, diet, and sleep. Everyone in this room, I think, probably safe to say it's hard to have them all ticking all the boxes all the time. It's pretty hard, but hey, if you start being able to identify areas where you could make a few adjustments to improve some of those areas, even one or two, then it's got to make a big impact to you eventually being able to tick a few more of those boxes?
I think you just answered the next question. The next question was going to be about overwhelm and how we're often in that overwhelm cycle, and especially whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, we're all going through that when we have a child with a disability. So is there anything you'd like to add as to what are some of the things that you can be doing every day? Yeah.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, hands up if you're not feeling overwhelmed most of the time. That's what I thought, me too. So basically, we've got to start from what can you do to help yourself in your mind? What is going on in your mind? A lot of us will have that negative self-talk, right? Without even realizing it. So just starting to think about how we're talking to ourselves in our heads and out loud. And if it helps as an incentive to be aware of that, the way you speak out loud to yourself and out loud in front of your children is going to become their internal voice to themselves. So the more, I've had, families that see me in therapy and they're worried about their children that keep saying how stupid they are and they do something wrong or break something. And the first thing I ask is, so let's say you spill coffee on yourself, because I do that most days. What do you do? And they usually go, oh, God, I'm such an idiot. I go, So let's talk about that a bit more. So basically, you're constantly role modeling, and it's an impossible and exhausting task. It's a lot to ask for a parent, but the more support you can outsource, the more creatively you may be able to use your NDIS funding in order to get those supports. So get them off your plate. The more capacity you'll have to be able to be self-aware and regulate, and then that co-regulation comes through your child, that role modelling comes through to them. The longer you're able to stay in a fairly comfortable state, regulated, the more you're going to be able to increase that capacity and just be able to thrive, and your children will thrive more for it. Did I miss the mark on the question?
No, that's all good. All good. I was actually going to say the next question for you anyway, so that's all right. You might be going to talk about it anyway, Kylie. As a Healthy Mothers, Healthy Families facilitator, and you're very informed about Professor Helen Taylor's work, she often talks about micro breaks. What is a micro break? And can you inform everybody on how we should be doing it?
So a micro break is an intentional pause. Your intention is to slow down and just to pause in the moment, and it's micro. So 30 seconds to 2 minutes, that's enough to calm down and regulate your nervous system enough so that you can then keep going to the next micro break. And all those micro moments, they add up. So if you think about a mountain, and you think in front of you, you've got to climb that mountain, it only gets climbed by the first step. And so a micro moment is that first little step that you can take. And it might be just, focusing back in, what's my breathing doing? What's my body doing? Where's my heart rate right now? Have I gone to the toilet? Have I eaten? It could be something like that, or it might be, the sun's out, I'm going to go get some sunshine for 5 seconds. I'm going to drink a warm cup of tea or coffee instead of a cold one. Those tiny little micro breaks, the intentional pause that you bring to it, the noticing, it's powerful. And then I love talking about glimmer moments. It's really about those moments of safety, those moments of calm, those moments of joy, because that's what you want to be doing in a micro break. You want to be calming down your nervous system to feel safe again, because often it's adrenalized and there's cortisol going on that's, creating that stress. So you want to decrease the stress for yourself in any way that works for you. Everybody's different. You might love to move your body. You might like to put on noise cancelling headphones yourself. You might like to sit still. You might like to talk to another person. So there's all different ways of being able to do that, but listen to what your body's saying. And then when you find those glimmer moments, I encourage you to savor those, linger in the moment, because when you can linger for a little longer and savor it, your brain goes looking for more of it. You can train your brain if you start your day off with that, and the brain can change itself. It's neuroplastic, so encourage yourself to think about how I'm going to take a micro break. What is it going to look like? can you go home and take a micro break tonight? What can you do tomorrow? And see if you can start your day doing that. And I was going to say, that's in your circle of control. So you have the ability to focus in that circle of control and to say no to other things and let go.
Sorry, you want to? No. Okay, sorry, chatterbox over here. I got really excited because this is, the grounding and the mindfulness strategies, right? So you're talking about savoring that moment of joy, and then you're grounding yourself into the present moment rather than your head always floating up here and thinking of all these worries and things you've got to do. You're just actually present. So the more you do that, the more your brain and body gets used to that and can sustain it. The other thing is that I was just going to give you an actual an activity that you can take home and work on. Pride and gratitude is, you've probably heard about it before, but pride and gratitude is the opposite to low self-esteem. It's an antidote to those negative thoughts and the intrusive worries. So hands up if you've ever, looked at something new to buy, like a new car, you want to buy a Mazda, and all of a sudden all you see is Mazdas. Has anyone ever had that kind of experience? Yes, okay, so that's because your brain is honing in on that one particular thing, right? So if you can have a little journal and you hand write down, because that's very important, 3 things you're proud about yourself every day and 3 things you're grateful for every day, it will, in time, give it a couple of weeks, be consistent, reprogram your mind to focus on and look for those things you're proud about and grateful for, rather than, oh God, this again, or this happened, or they're not succeeding in this and whatnot. It just reprograms your mind. It's one of the things I used I was suggested in my journey to, a huge journey, and it worked beautifully. So it really gets your mind to shine a spotlight on looking for those things without you realizing. And it doesn't have to be anything major. It could literally be, I'm proud of myself for actually going to get the clothes and bringing them down from the line before the rain started. Or I'm grateful for so-and-so actually keeping my kids for another couple of hours. Whatever it is.
Thank you, Helen. And I'm going to now move to Frank and sharing the load. So as a father who's committed to being hands-on, what does sharing the load look like, both in a practical and an emotional way? And what advice would you give for couples or co-parents trying to find more balance?
In the practical one is, very specifically, just take the children to their therapy appointments or take them to school, being their driver sometimes, because that's a very practical part of the load that needs to be done, which quite often, unfortunately, lands with the mother. And that's why I said, just do that, take them to the appointments. Is an easy way of sharing the load. But then also think about, on your way there, or think about, okay, what is it that my child need now in this therapy appointment? So you actually can engage with the therapist and not just drive them there and drop them and then take them home, and then you come home and your partner asks, so what did you talk about? I don't know. Well, then you haven't fully participated. But just start with the driving, going there, doing the practical things, and then but also then engage with what they're doing, but also trying to, when the children are acting out, try to understand why and try to understand, be a part of the journey, do some of the research and sort of, hey, what does it mean to be ADHD? What does it mean to be autistic? How does this impact my child? So you actually have something to bring to the table, because it is, again, quite often the mothers that do the most, and they are further ahead on the journey to understand that. So so I said to fathers, step up and do a bit more and take initiative and take engagement. I think that's a big part. But also then to the mothers on the flip side, lean back a little bit, because the father's ideas, the father's thought might be a different approach than what you would have chosen, but he is also a different person that connects with the children in a different way. So it actually, for him, that might work better for him than trying the approach that a mother then looking forward to. So sort of step up, lean back, and just sort of give them the space to actually engage, and without feeling that, on what that doesn't work because I tried that before, it didn't work for me. Yeah, it didn't work for you, but it could work for me. So it's about you have to give that space both ways. So I think that's very important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any
parts of the question I didn't answer?
No, that's all good. Because I'm actually going to now throw to our audience. So we're very lucky to have Pam with us. Now, Pam works with our medical families, and I'm actually going to take a little walk down the aisle. And I'm going to ask her about what it's like to have that shared support in the medical space.
Sure. So our eldest son, Christopher, is incredibly medically complex and loves to spend way too much time in hospital, but he's also a big brother to 3 other kids. So it's really a beautiful balancing act every time he needs to go into hospital, and he's 11 and a half now, so I feel like we've got a good handle on crisis. So a big part of that is communication, not just between Tom and I, but between our wider support network as well. We're incredibly lucky to have my amazing in-laws close by, so they can kind of step in, help keep the other kids' routines as close as possible to normal, so that Tom and I can be as supported as we can be during that difficult time. So we take turns as to who's in hospital. One thing that we've worked out over time that works really well for us is that one parent is at home with the kids and the other parent is in hospital with Christopher. The swapping and changing just gets all too overwhelming. It's a handover for the person that's been at the hospital to the person that's coming, but it's re-regulating the other kids and getting them used to having the other parent home again. It gets messy. So that's what works for us. One person stays in, one person is at home with everybody else. But I think we've done a lot of work as a partnership, but also as individuals in terms of reflecting on what works for each of us when we are in a dysregulated and overwhelmed state. So for me personally, I need sunshine on my face every single day. So if I'm in the hospital, I will take advantage of the plans of palliative care nurses that come to visit us. If my mother-in-law comes or Tom comes in with a coffee, I will leave them with Christopher and go outside and get 5 minutes of sunshine and fresh air on my face. It changes my entire day and it allows me to just be a little bit more present and continue facing whatever it is that we're dealing with in that time. So I think allow yourself time to reflect on what works for you and work out what micro moments are the best at filling your cup when things are calm-ish and not so overwhelmed and dysregulated, so that you have those things at hand that you can turn to quickly when crisis does descend. But also maintaining open communication, not just with your partner, but with your wider support network as well.
Amazing. Yes, thank you. That is so important to be able to practice those things, because when we don't practice them and we don't put them into everyday situations, they are harder to actually put into and utilize when it comes to the times that we need them. So now I'm going to go back to Kylie. And comparison is a hard thing. It's something we all get caught up in, whether it's family life or what our child is doing. And it's really hard to, Christy often says, comparison is the thief of joy, and it really is. What do you say to parents who find themselves caught in that comparison trap? Oh.
Well, yes, I agree, Christy. Comparison is the thief of joy. So if joy is one of your goals, it's going to be something you're going to have to work at. But it's normal to compare. Our brain does it all the time, even when we're not noticing. It's just a part of how our brain's keeping us safe, looking for commonality. So, normalising it to parents, saying it's okay, all parents are doing it, we're all doing it. But then also understanding the person that you have in front of you, the family that you are. Our children are unique and so is our family. And we all have strengths within our family. So focus on those strengths, focus on the strengths of your children, focus on your own unique strengths and celebrate the wins, enjoy the wins. They might be really small. You might know how much work went behind getting that win, and so it doesn't matter if other families aren't celebrating those small wins. They're the wins that are meaningful to you. So give yourself time to pause and get that feel-good hormone we call dopamine. Let yourself enjoy it and enjoy that win. The other thing is, with comparison, it's going to creep up on you sometimes. You're going to think, oh, we've really got this. We've got it all together. We've been doing really well. And then you'll see, in the community something happen, or on social media, you'll see something. Just know people are sharing their best moments, their best days. I think we all know that, but we need to be reminded of it. And you might see something really amazing when you're out and about in the community and think, oh, I wish our family could do what they're doing over there. That's normal to think that, but don't sit there. Then go home and say, well, we get to do this. We get to have this fun thing. We get to have this unique moment that no one else gets to have. So really start finding, I made a list of all those things to be grateful for that you talk about gratitude. I love making little lists in my mind when I'm driving, when I'm sitting doing the dishes, what am I grateful for? In fact, I've even created menus because I think menus are really helpful. So I have a little self-care menu that I have for when I have 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I have a 5-minute self-care menu, have a 10-minute to 15-minute self-care menu, half an hour one, 2-hour one, and an all-day one. So see if you can get creative with self-care menus as well, because that can help when that comparison comes along.
And gratefuls are so important. We do it as a family, and actually it then role models for the kids. What are you grateful for? So we're practicing that with them. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Helen, my next one is for you. Now, many parents don't recognise when they're burning out until they already are. What are those early signs that you encourage families to watch for? And what should someone do if they're recognising those signs within themselves?
Self-awareness is always going to be my go-to for developing that understanding of what's happening for yourself. But one of the most common is getting snappy, having a really short fuse. And if you're finding that you're just thinking, oh, God, I really snapped that quicker than usual, or I'm not really able to sit and interact with the kids as much, or I'm constantly running around from back and forth busy, but things aren't getting done, that it might be time to just identify that maybe things are getting a bit much. If you're thinking you've got additional, your anxiety is increasing, intrusive thoughts, or you're worrying about a bit much, or the negative self-talk is starting to creep back in again a bit more often. I'm at a stage now where if I can hear myself in my head having negative self-talk, I think, oh, okay, hold on a minute. And then I'll just rewrite that and change that around deliberately. But because I've done that work to understand and be able to take that kind of conscious awareness of what's happening in my head. So that's why I always tell families, having your own, support is so important. Your own therapy is support. And as often as you can manage it, to develop this self-awareness, because it can be different for each individual. But the other thing is, if you're, social withdrawal, if you're starting to say no to things and you're just like, oh, I'm too tired, but usually you'd enjoy seeing those friends, you're not leaving the house as much, things like that, you're just generally more fatigued, then that's interesting to pay attention to. Why is that going on? If you've got a partner at home, I'd always, or even the wider support network you've got that see you often, make sure they're aware of what you struggle with when you're starting to feel like it's all a bit too much, because sometimes we do not identify it within ourselves, especially when we're in overwhelm. And being in a state of escalated emotions or overwhelm, you can't put strategies in place a lot of the time. You can't actually, you're not grounded enough to do that. So you need to regulate, and sometimes we need someone from the outside to go, you're right, you need a hand. You didn't come to dinner the last couple of times. How you been? What's going on? To check in on you. And those people that are in your support network that you trust to do that, they will do that. And what you can do is, if you start noticing that, is go back to what, your original things that helped you the first time, then you started to recover and improve those things. Were you journaling? Were you you look at your seeds, your social, your emotional self-care, your education. Are you learning stuff that you're interested in? How's your diet? Are you actually eating? Are we just having toast for dinner? And how's our sleep quality going? Have there been... It seems sometimes like a lot of extra work to do to go through all this stuff, but one small change, sometimes we don't realise suddenly we're waking up at 3 a.m. on scrolling on our phone for a couple of hours every morning. And just that reflection, you can just, okay, let's just fix that and see where our baseline is after that. And it makes a big difference. So, and the other thing I'd say is just try and get that sense of perfectionism that a lot of us have and hold everywhere, as in, of course, we're parents, our children have needs. We always want to do the absolute best in every way for them. But let's be real. We're not going to be able to meet an unrealistic perfection in every area, and that's actually okay. No one expects that. Your child doesn't expect that. It's actually not the best thing for your child. They should be struggling in a few things, you know? It's good for them to see themselves struggle with something, but then figure it out a different way or get support from someone else, because guess what? They're going to need to ask support from someone else sometimes, and it's such a good learning experience to know that you're not the only person that they can always rely on for that support or to get them through that. There are so many options. So the grounding that Kylie mentioned, those little micro moments, use them and take any chance for someone to support you, to take the kids for a bit if that happens. Use your funding creatively to ensure that the whole family's needs are met for this child to have the best outcome at the end. Because, yeah, parents are usually the captain of the ship, and always, they should be. I think kids sometimes drive the ship, but we need to make sure that we are doing the best we can to help us keep ourselves afloat and focusing on a couple of things at a time, not everything.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, and then you've probably answered my next question. So it's all good.
Yeah, and to the men in the room in particular, stereotypically, we are not the best at seeking help and acknowledging we have emotional, mental challenges and stuff like that. But it's not true. We have them probably as equally much as others, but we're just not as open about it. So please, just talk to your mates, go to your GP and have a chat about it. And yeah, I'm going through a big life transition now because, yeah, that's another story, but I'm in a separation. So I went for a walk on the beach on my own, ran into another dad from school that I know a little bit, but not that much, and his friend. And I just I never asked, how are we doing? And then it's quite easy to say, I'm fine, I'm good, as you always do. But it's you know what? Life kind of sucks. And it was okay, what's up? And they gave me a hug. And after that, I've been going for a walk on the beach once a week for the last 4 months with these two guys. And we're always checking in on each other and stuff like that. So it's really important to do that. And it's you get the steam out just talking about it. You don't go there to get an answer or get a solution. Sometimes it's just about blurting it out, get it out of your head, because that's when you're getting spiraled down and when you just leave it there. And yeah, go to your GP, you can get a referral to a psychologist. Might not work with the first one, you might have to go through a few, because that's a lot about a personal relationship between you, how you actually gelling with them. So don't give up after you tried the first therapist twice. But a lot of you might also be in an organization that have an EAP. Free psychologists you can use through that. Or even if you don't have it, your partner might have it, and quite often they have a partner's access as well. So you can basically call up and say, hey, my partner works for some company and we have this EAP thing. So just another avenue where you can seek out help from professionals. And I'm saying this because I've used all of this myself. And I do find the system a little bit frustrating. I was diagnosed with depression. It was probably burnout, but burnout comes from the workplace according to the diagnostic material. But I probably had family burnout or life burnout, because work was fine, but my life wasn't fine. So I was really, really down. But in the end of the day, call it whatever you want. I got the tools and I got the help through being diagnosed with depression, even though it was something else, but I wanted the tools. I don't really care about the label. So, but yeah, go out and seek help and be honest and open. And sometimes therapists might not work, but at least talk to your mates and don't be afraid about that.
Thank you. Kylie, on to you. You've mentioned before about adventures. I know your husband and child are off on trains today, and I've seen pictures of you guys hiking and bushwalking and all sorts of things. How do you keep that joy in amongst how busy life can get?
It's a good question because it's up and down. It's a roller coaster ride sometimes, but purposefully, intentionally scheduling it in really helps. We don't always make it. Things happen. You know, there's 4 people in our family and the cat, and things can happen to all 5 of us. Often the cat, but they do. They're expensive things, but it's just being able to acknowledge it, have those conversations, and find out, you know, is my goal to do this still what my family want to do? You know, I've found out my 16-year-old, she doesn't want to come to the destination, but she'd drive there because she's got her else now. You know, so working out ways that we can bring little moments of joy in. My husband and I recently, we connected back into the Carers Gateway. I don't know if anyone's had success with them or used them. I use the counselling service. It's just finished, it's free. I found it really good, but my husband's about to start with it. I'm now going on to the coaching because that's free too. And so I'm going to start the coaching. And we were fortunate enough to get a small package as a change of circumstances. I just went back and said, we've used it in 2022, but we really need some help again. And I was fortunate that they gave us a very small package. And that meant that my husband and I could schedule in some time for ourselves and together, and then with each individual child as well, while the other person was looking after and helping us. So if you haven't thought about using the Carers Gateway, that's another way. And also my peer network, they inspire me. You all inspire each other. It's listening to what we all do. I love my My Time groups. So if you haven't joined a My Time group yet, connect and chat. They're online with Belongside and also on a Wednesday at Plumtree, and that's online too. So just think about your local area. I think we've heard about My Time today from a few parents as well, which has been awesome. And just knowing that self-care looks different for each and every one of us. So I find nature is my grounding place. I have to be in nature of some kind, but I love taking pictures of it. So when I can't be in nature, I go look at my photos of when I was. I share it on Facebook if you've ever seen my posts, and Instagram. And that just brings me back to those moments that connect me to where I need to be. So yeah, just being able to be balanced and try and get back to that state of balance. So if you're not there at the moment, it's okay. Sometimes we're in all different phases, but just see if you can take a small little step towards that again.
Helen, we know families, they all look different, and some people are doing this journey on their own. What specific strategies would you give to or supports make the biggest difference for those solo parents trying to care for themselves but also care for their children?
It's a really hard job. Kudos to anyone doing that. It's a big deal. Reach out to any supports you can get. I mean, if someone wants to bring over food, don't be too proud. I'll take it, is what I say now. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Talk to people, figure out how to use your funding creatively to meet goals and ensure that your needs are met. If you need to, you need to work, you need to cook, you need to clean, you need to everything, you need to be that person, you need to be the pillar of support for the whole household. So, how can one person do that? It's a big deal. So peel away all the extra layers that if there's anything you can let go of, and if it's as much as letting go of unrealistic expectations or letting go of having, your Saturday mornings to have to run a certain way and everything, but I want to sit down for dinner as a family, and those pressures you put on yourself, if you can just start letting those things go that are in your control to let go of, that at the end of the day, do they really matter? I'm probably not the best person to ask about this because I'm not a single parent.
That's okay.
But I'm
because
sure
going
that-
to swing it to
I'm
someone
sure
else.
there's going to be a single
I'm
parent.
going to take another walk down the aisle. So Sarah, I'm coming for you. Now, no, don't fall off this chair. Now, you talk so much about caring about yourself as a solo parent. What strategies or supports make the biggest difference for you?
I speak about bravery and vulnerability a lot because I've had to be really brave and be really vulnerable. Growing up, I didn't realise till I, was going through a process where I was leaving, my partner and working 5 days, directing a centre. Then my Josh going through a diagnosis and me having life telling me stop, slow down. It was really tough. The biggest thing for me was finding time to do things for myself and put myself first. And I never knew how to do that. And that was really tough. So I talk about, that modelling and teaching, I essentially had to teach the teacher, teach myself what I needed to do and look out for my own cues and what my body needed. But I was really supported and really lucky that for a long time, this beautiful place, the great therapists and, and team with Silvana at Plumtree were my village and were my family for a very long time because I didn't have any family support. I was the support and still am for my family. And my cup was overflowing for a long time. And I was then introduced to the wonderful Belongside Families. And I built a village. Again, I speak about being brave and raw. And, I'm surrounded by my amazing colleagues who showed me that what I was experiencing was really real. And I wasn't alone. And I guess if there's any message I can give any parent, not just a single parent, is parenting is not meant to be done in isolation. You are not alone. Parenting is tough, and I learned that. You are an expert, but every expert needs support and advice. You can't do it alone. I also would like to say, as hard as it is to talk about things for yourself, I had to be brave and book a psychologist for myself. And I didn't realise how much I was deserving of someone saying to me, "Are you okay?" And talking about what are feelings. I never stopped to understand what my feelings were and to have permission to cry and have space just for me. And that wasn't selfish. It was what I deserved and what I needed. So you deserve taking time out. It's all different for everybody. Fun is what we need, and we so are deserving and worth it. And I'm so grateful for this amazing village who are just not my friends, but are also my colleagues. So there's power in lived experience and sharing our stories.
Thank you, Sarah. And so much of what Sarah just said speaks to my last question, and this is to all of you. So when a parent realises they need support for their own well-being, whether that's counselling, respite, peer support or something else, where should they start? What has been most helpful for you and what resources do you recommend?
I'm just going to quickly start because they're all going to fly out of my head in a second. Start by reaching out, talking to people that have validated you and believed you and come to support you in other times where you've said you needed support. If you've ever reached out for emotional support or practical support to someone to be dismissed or ignored or just have them not turn up, reach out to someone else that you can rely on, someone that you know will be there for you. Ensure you're linked in with your own mental health support regularly. We all need it. Parenting neurodivergent kids or children with additional needs or not, we all need it. People in our boat need it more so. And what was the last question? I told you I'd forget. ADHD. Resources to help you in those times. Yes. That's when that regular therapy comes into play. as a person who, my son is now 10, he was 3.5 when he was identified, and had gone through a lot myself at that time, had no idea about, I even had anxiety at the time, it was a crazy time. There's a difference going through that experience with zero skills, zero emotional skills being taught to you, to then going through it with my 6-year-old now and having all the toolbox of mental health strategies and co-regulation and my own regulation and meeting my own needs. And I'm too tired to cook dinner. I couldn't care less right now. Here's 2-minute noodles. Here's some toast, but that's okay. I don't feel guilty. I couldn't care less. It's a night. Being able to tell myself that takes that pressure off and that guilt off and that negative self-talk. See you later. Because it's okay to have a day that's, you know what, they're watching TV the whole day. You know what, that's a great day for them. I don't need to feel bad about it because it's not every day. So learning those skills from having the regular therapeutic support from someone with lived experience with what you're going through is always essential in my professional and personal opinion. That's what's going to get you through the harder times down the track. Whether you're still seeing someone or not at that time, those skills will come back into play. So please, that's the best thing I can suggest. Do you have a question? Or?
Can I just say something that I forgot to say? There is no shame. I'm standing up now, probably that's not very good. There is no shame, no fear in joining and connecting with people in ways that you're comfortable. And I say this because my go-to, and I'm going to point at this wonderful man, Mello, because I remember coming to a lot of sessions with Mello and he'd be like, "Hi, Sarah." And I would come as a sole single parent. You probably remember this because I needed to connect. Because for a very long time I was isolated. And yes, in theory and some practical stuff, I knew what I was doing. But I needed to be validated and I needed to be heard. And often they were freebies. I love a freebie. Right? I was a single mum. I couldn't afford a lot of the therapies and a lot of the programs, and I didn't have a lot of access to NDIS funds. So I'm so grateful for Belongside and for Plumtree because I was heard, I was validated, and I was welcomed, never shamed into a village that I needed. No matter how many times I probably repeated Circle of Security or 1, 2, 3 Michael coaching, but I came because I wanted to connect and I wanted to, I guess, share my story and learn and know that I wasn't on my own. And I just wanted to share that because I think that's really important. Sorry to interrupt.
Can I just add to that? Sorry. You spoke before about vulnerability, Sarah, and vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is a leap to courage. So every time you go to a peer support My Time or you take part in a workshop, that is a leap of courage. That's building your vulnerability. So I'll now hand back to Frank and Kylie to finish off our...
Yeah. Yes, I did mention a fair bit of support in my previous comment and really encourage you all to use that. One of the things I didn't mention that I also sometimes find useful and just getting your own thoughts out there and also getting other people's thoughts back is there's a lot of Facebook groups for autism dads and that sort of stuff. And I mentioned that usually I like parents groups and I don't necessarily distinguish between fathers and mothers and stuff like that. I like to be kind of, and one of the things that frustrates me is when on my parents group someone addresses, "Hey mothers, can you give me advice on this?" No, this is a parents group. So that's another pet peeve of mine. But there is a place for mothers groups, for autistic children and PDA dads and all that sort of stuff there, because there are some challenges that are unique for you as a father, you as a man versus you as a mom and that sort of stuff. So it's okay having those separate groups as well and use them and just try, hey, I'm just really struggling. Quite often people are just, I just need to get this out. And then you put it out and then just getting that little electronic little hug or some comments, yeah, we get you, I've been there before. Just knowing you're not alone is quite often important because your friends from other groups might not necessarily understand your challenges. And I really had that experience in a different part of my life. I was down in Africa, in Uganda, working in the IDP camps there with a friend, and again through Scouts. But when we came back a few months later, she said, "Oh, good to talk to you again, because no one else in my sphere understand what we went through when we were there." And it is a little bit similar here. Other people, you can explain it to them, they can cognitively sort of understand it, but they don't have that same feeling. So sometimes even that stranger on a Facebook group might actually get you and understand your challenges, to sort of put it out there, you feel understood in a different way. And another place where I found, because it's easy with our children and challenges to get very stuck in this world. So for me also, actually having actively engaged in my community, being a volunteer scout leader. I mean, I have been a scout myself since I was 8 years old, so it's an organization I know and I cherish, and it's given me so much throughout life. But in recent times, it's given me a community that is not about my children. It's not about my children's disability and the care that I need. It's just given me a community, and that's been amazing. And when you're a leader, you naturally become a bit of the focal point in the community as well. So all the parents and the other leaders has just been amazing people around me that I eventually also then could open up to and that sort of stuff. So I think it's important to find spaces outside of the life-to-life challenges that we are experiencing, as well as a way of helping us our own mental health and purpose.
Thanks. So I'm just going to go straight to resources, because I think they're powerful, and sometimes we feel too busy to tap into resources. But there are so many different resources out there just in these two amazing organisations. So if you haven't signed up to the newsletters, do that, because then it's going to be in your emails and you're going to be reminded. It's just a little reminder prompt. If you haven't checked out the event calendars on both Belongside Families and Plumtree, then please check out the event calendars, because every term there is going to be something that's going to resonate for you, something that's going to connect you back in. Even if you haven't connected in a really long time, it's okay. So I encourage you, and Sarah just talked about Mello. Mello has been running some incredible programs with Plumtree. They're for all parents. So invite all parents in. Circle of Security we talk about, that is for all parents. So get them coming in. If they know your family, if they're supporting your family and they want to know how to support your child more. I've recently had people ask me, how can we help you? What can we do with Liam that would be fun? So if you know that there's an emotion coaching coming up and you think it might help them with that. So it's for all those families. So check out the events that are there. Right now we're running Plumtree running the Now and Next program again. If you haven't done it, or perhaps it was a really long time ago you did it, and you might be thinking, has it changed? Yes, it may have changed. There might be some updates of things there. So if you want to connect in through that program, talked about the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Families program. They are two of my favourites, so we'll talk about them. But if you haven't done Healthy Mothers, Healthy Families yet, and you're thinking about it, and yes, there is one there for dads too. It's called Families for Families, is that right? Yeah, something like that. So there is some stuff on there for dads too now, which is great. And I like Sarah, like finding freebies, because if we can share things that are free, the only thing that's stopping us is us and time. And if they continue to be free, which is what we want our foundational supports to continue to be, we need those foundational supports. We need to keep advocating for them. We need to keep showing up first. I remember someone saying to me, if you don't buy a ticket on the bus, they won't know to send the bus. So buy the ticket, then they'll send the bus. So we need to keep showing up. Just be there. Keep talking about it. Tell your community, tell other parents, hey, did you know about that's going to be next term? And they might say, I don't have time for that. I go, that's what I thought. I didn't have time for that. I actually know there's one or two people in the room here that I nagged a lot to come along. And guess what? They're now peer workers. So you never know, that ripple effect. I think, Mello, you talked about the power of that ripple effect. That's what it does. I mean, the moment I talked to Stacey and Mello, that ripple effect just kept going. And who knows how many other parents you've already influenced. So just keep on connecting in. And I already talked about the Carers Gateway. So I know it's one of those contentious topics. Some people have success with them, some don't. But the counselling, if you find the right counsellor, they're trained to actually counsel us as carers. So first, if you don't identify as a carer, it makes it a little bit tricky. But once you understand your caring role and what that means, those counsellors can really give you some amazing tools and reassurance. Same with the coaches. So I do encourage you to reconsider it if you haven't had success in the past.
I think Frank wants to
Yeah.
add something.
Yeah, one thing I was, when I went through the questions and thought, oh, something I want to mention, but I've not done it in either of them. It's, well, briefly I did, but yeah, as I said, I'm going through a process of separation, possibly going to end up in divorce. And the most important person you have to be your support is your partner. So take care of that, because when we start going on this diagnostic journey and supporting our children, it is so easy to say, oh, our relationship is strong, we're going to get through this, we're going to put our child first, and you do that the next month, the next 6 months, the next year, and all of a sudden 5 years are gone and you have not worked on the relationship with your partner, and that eventually then withers and dies, and you have no connection other than you are just constantly battling for your child, which then eventually leads to you not being fully on the same page because you have no connection anymore. So it is so important to keep prioritizing your relationship. Not prioritizing, but still nurture your relationship with your partner, even from the get-go. And if you look at the divorce statistics, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think the average couple is about 50% divorce rate in our society. For couples with neurodiverse children, it is way over 70% divorce rates. So we are at a higher risk, which means we need to be better at taking care of it. I wasn't good enough to do that, but I really implore you all to really try to do that as well. Take care of your partner and take care of each other.
Thank you, Frank. And thank you to Helen, Frank and Kylie for all being so open and honest with us today. We really do appreciate it. I'm sorry we've kept you all a little bit over time, in fact more than a half an hour over time. But if you can take something away from the session we've just had, whether it be the gratitude exercise that Helen talked about, or letting go of comparison, or even just embracing this unique path that we're all on together, if you can just take one small thing from today, we'll know that we've made a bit of a difference. Yes, Lindy?
Sorry, just one more support that's sort of slightly outside the disability space. Beyond Blue, if you're having one of those days where I can't, give them a call.
Yeah.
About 20 minutes with them and I can.
Great reminder.
And it's so true. Parent line, kids helpline, all of those things are so important, and they are an access for us to be able to get that support when we need it, and especially something that is right there and then, as opposed to waiting for a counselling appointment or something like that. So remember, caring for yourself isn't just about adding more to your plate. It's about finding those small moments, those micro breaks, and doing this important work that we do every single day. You deserve care too. Please don't hesitate to reach out for support if you need it. As I said, it's not a weakness. Vulnerability is not a weakness, but it is a way for us to build that confidence and that courage. So thank you all for being here today and showing up for yourselves, and please take care.